Hey guys, how's it going? What do you want to talk about? Some interesting Mopar trivia for a little bit? Okay, so I've got a couple broadcast sheets out in front of me here, and in the world of vintage Mopars, we love broadcast sheets because not only is it a thrill to find one in your car, but it's valuable because not itself it isn't valuable, but it authenticates a car. So this is a sheet that they printed when the car was built by the Mopar factory, Chrysler-Plymouth Dodge. They printed off several copies of these and they distributed them down the line to different stations, and they instructed the workers there how to build the car, because when you have a car, a four-door Plymouth body shell coming down, you don't know how to build it unless you have instructions. It's like anything else. So that's what a broadcast sheet's for. Sometimes they call build sheets, and Ford may call them something else, Chevy may call them something else, but they were commonplace back then. And according to legend, they were not ever supposed to be left in the car, but they were fairly often. I've found several. This one happens to be from that green '73 Valiant that I had that we ended up parting out because it got so rusted, and this is the one for this '71 Scamp that I bought a while back. So they're very nice condition, aren't they? I laminated this one. I haven't done it to this one yet. I also have the one for the Chrysler. I have the one for the '68 Valiant, and I have a partial one for the '69 Dart. It suffered the worst. So anyway, at some point we can make a video about the broadcast sheet by itself if you want me to do that. But I thought what we would concentrate in this evening would be the difference between a sold car and a sales bank car. There were two different codes on the broadcast sheet for that, and they meant two distinctly different things. So let's take a look here at the one for the Plymouth. This was a four-door '73 Plymouth Valiant. It was a stripped-down basic car, and just basically had no options. One fascinating option about this car: you ever wondered if somebody would have if a Valiant like that would have a AM/FM radio in it? Well, here's proof it did. This is R21. That's for an AM/FM radio. If it was R11 like most other ones, it would be for an AM radio only. So that's neat that car came with that. But that car had no other options. It was a slant six, 3-speed on the tree, green inside, green outside, no vinyl roof, no power anything, no power steering, no power brakes, everything manual. So if you look up here in the right-hand top corner, sorry about that, a little bit of glare. Look here in the right-hand top corner, there's a category under the Y, which is vehicle delivery and handling, that says either sales bank or sold car. It's kind of abbreviated, but that's what it means. And the way you read this, you got a Y, and then you have a 1, and then the system, their computer system, would input the appropriate last numeral here. In this case, it's a 4, so that means Y14, as opposed to this one on the Scamp, which is Y16. So what's the difference? Well, Y14 on the Valiant means that it was a sold car. And don't think too much into that, because that means exactly what it says. It means when they built this car, they built it because they had an order for it. Now, where the order came from and how it got there, that gets romanticized a lot by people, because they think, oh, it was ordered. That car was ordered. So I bet a little old lady went into a dealership out in the hills of West Virginia, and she ordered this very rare Hemi Cuda and kept it in the garage all its life. And there I found it after I paid $60,000 for it. Well, that's not the way it works. A sold car just simply means that there was an order for it from somewhere. That could be a dealership ordered it for stock, or a customer walked into a dealership and ordered it to their specifications. But that's all it means. Don't think too much into it. It doesn't mean every time you see Y14 on there that it's some, it's just the car of dreams that was ordered one-on-one or something like crap like that. Doesn't mean that. So this car, since it was a sold car, that means somebody ordered it, and I guarantee you, I can tell you how it was ordered. This car, being a stripped-down Plymouth, that was not sold as a fleet car. It was never a fleet car. They had a lot of those as telephone cars and things like that. This one wasn't one of them because it would be coded differently if a fleet had bought it up there, but they didn't. So I can hardly rather fathom somebody. As far as I know, there's a little old lady. She was a little old lady when she sold it. She was just a middle-aged lady when she bought it. I cannot imagine a middle-aged lady buying a car with a 3-speed on the tree manual transmission with no synchro and low, or ordering it that way. I think she probably bought it because what this car probably was, it was probably ordered by the dealership as a loss leader. Anybody that's in sales knows what that means. That means that's a car or a product that you can sell cheaper or too cheap, cheaper than you would want to sell for normally, just to get people in your dealership. So what happened is they probably ordered 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of these a month like this. Very similar, no options. And this was a car that if you were listening to the radio back in late 72, early 73, you would hear some announcer come on the radio. He'd say, down here at Wilkins Chrysler-Plymouth, we have brand new 1973 Plymouth Valiants for only $29.95 while they last, or some crap like that. So you and the wife have already been looking for a new car, and you think, well, you know what? Maybe we'll just go down there and look for that car. So you get down there, and either it's not here because it's already gone, sold, or that was because I was the only one that had like that, or you get down there and it's green inside and green outside, so with a 3-speed. But you think, well, being the stubborn man I am, I'm going to buy it anyway. This is the car I wanted. You either do that, which is the minority of people, or you do what the majority of people did, and they got steered away from that car because the salesman already knew what he was up to. He said, well, you don't want that car. That car is hard to drive. It's no power steering. It'd be awful. No air conditioning. Come here and look at one of these Plymouths we got over here. Look at this one with a V8 and air conditioning and power steering. It's the same thing. It appeals to people's sense of vanity and sense of what they deserve. It's been going on for years and years and years. That's how you sell stuff, especially cars. So anyway, that's what that meant right there. That meant that it was ordered in. Like I said, I can't believe a person would order a car like this because that thing was miserable to drive with a 3-speed. I got so many comments about that car. Well, the 3-speed, oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's cool. It's fun. No, it's not. It was not any of those because it had no power steering. And if you've ever driven one of those A-bodies with manual steering, you have to have. You just saw me fight that brown car out of the garage out there. It takes all of both arms and hands and arms and elbows to get those things steered at low speeds. And that car, with its transmission it had in it, which was the original transmission per the VIN number on it, was not synchronized. It was just like a doggone dump truck or a bus, which means that it would not shift into low gear unless you double clutched it while you were moving. So you had to be stopped. So anyway, that thing, I would love to have another 3-speed on the column car if it wasn't that difficult to drive. It's awful. But I got every kind of comment about that from people that just, they didn't have one, probably never had driven one, but they want to tell me that how dumb I was for taking that out. I should have said, you ought to come down and drive it. We'll drive down into downtown traffic on a 90-degree day, and we'll drive around in traffic in that car for an hour, stop and go, and we'll make all kinds of turns and back up and get into parking places. And then when we get back home, you tell me how much fun that car was to drive. Tell me exactly how much fun it was once you pick yourself up off the ground wringing wet with sweat from it. So anyway, now that that's over with, that's the deal with a sold car. So it doesn't mean the mythical little old lady from Pasadena bought it and ordered it her way with a Hemi or something. So anyway, we look at this one over here. This is where this gets even more interesting. This is a Y16 code. It's different. That means that's a sales bank car. So what the heck is a sales bank? Is that nobody knows what a sales bank is. Is that like a financial institution that Chrysler ran, or is it like the dealership's bank? loan people, or is it, is it drive up, or did they have ATMs or credit cards? What is that? We don't know what that is at all. What's sales bank? Well, sales bank means that it's you get a little bit of backstory to it. So normally the factory, when they're running at high capacity, or high volume rather, and people are buying a lot of darts, a lot of Valiants, a lot of Furies, and a lot of whatevers, bread and butter cars like that. They keep the factory running pretty fast, so they just taking orders right and left for cars from everywhere. But if there's a slowdown for some reason, like maybe around the holidays or something, people aren't buying cars as much, or if they went into a recession or something like that, then what would happen was Chrysler, in order to keep the factory running and keep their production up, and their customers that sold them, their affiliates, people that built things for their cars, suppliers rather, keep them going at the rate that they needed to go to be profitable, to keep everything rolling so nobody was just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, so to speak. Then Chrysler would build cars that there were no orders for. So this was one of them. So they probably had, I've seen a car equipped just like this one, a twin to it, at least one of them just recently on the internet. So what I figure happened was they had formulas made up of cars to build. So they would just plug it in to this computer, and it would spit out a broadcast on this car, and there were who knows how many clones of it. Like this was a 71 Scamp with a 225 slant six with automatic, power steering, air conditioning, option light package, a few other things on it, vinyl top. So it was a very nice looking car, very appealing color, and nice option. So it was a fairly easy sale. It was just middle of the road. It didn't have a V8, but it had, all those options, had some trim on it, nice trim, had tinted glass. So, again, it was an easy sale. So what they did was they built these cars and they just stored them somewhere for a short amount of time. So they had all these cars that were no orders for. No dealer had ordered these things. Nobody wanted them, so to speak, You can look at it that way. So then it fell to I guess it would be the regional sales manager, they called them, to find somebody to buy these cars. So they went around, I guess they either went around to dealerships or they called them or something, or wrote whatever they did it. Maybe some of you out there that did this, and you know how it worked more than I do. I wasn't there. But anyway, it fell to them to get these cars sold. So you may have a lot somewhere up there in Michigan or Windsor, Ontario, that had 100 Valiants and Scamps and other stuff sitting there that had never been sold yet, and nobody had even ordered them. So that's what a sales bank car. That's what the sales bank was. A sales bank was just basically like any kind of bank. It held something, and in this case, it held cars that weren't sold yet. So it wasn't a mistake. They did it on purpose. And then in couple, 3 or 4 days or a week, whenever the orders started piling in again for cars to be filled, they stopped doing that. They didn't have to build cars that weren't sold yet. So that's what it's about. So if you ever look at your broadcast sheet and you see these codes up here, they're not coded on they're not coded on the fender tag at all. There's several things off the broadcast sheet that are not coded on the fender tag. But if you ever see those, now you know what they mean. So in one case, we had one car that was basically, I hate to say it, but it was an awful car. Nobody really wanted, that somebody actually did order. The dealer probably ordered it. It could have been a dealer or a customer. It did not make any difference. That was the same code. And then you had a car that was a lot nicer car, but nobody asked for it. So go figure. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this. I'm going to do a few more of these types of videos as we go along. Try to educate people and try to get away from some of the misinformation that tends to float around. People, they don't do it on purpose most of the time, but they just don't know what they're talking about. That's all you can say. So lastly, somebody may ask me, where do I always find these broadcast sheets in the cars? I found all of these under a seat in the A body. These two, I think, were behind the back seat cushion. That's a very common place to find them. The one in the dark was in the same place behind the rear seat cushion, the back by the back window, the up and down, not the bottom one. No, I take that back. I think the one in the dark was on the bottom seat cushion, the bottom rear seat cushion. The one on the Chrysler was, I found one in that car. I'm trying to remember where I found that one. I didn't have to do any real, I might have taken the back seat cushion out and found it in there. But it had two of them actually. So they say they can be above the glove box. I've never seen one that can be under the carpet. If they're under the carpet in a Mopar of this era, then they're gone. They're destroyed because those things leak so bad. But that's normally where they're at. If you ever have an A body and you're looking, it has original upholstery in it, you think, then if you want to find the build sheet, look behind the rear seat, the upper rear seat and the bottom rear seat. Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, that red Dart Sport I had, that's one where it was at. It was the same place. The remnants of it were behind the rear seat back cushion. So that's where to look. All right, guys, thanks for hanging in here with me. Hope some of you found this a little interesting. See you later.